Hello YouTube, I'm Zach, you're watching Zach DTV, the place for interesting news from around the net. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the first photo ever taken of a black hole. We're going to talk about an mmorpg space science. We also have a look at the first protest, the first political protest ever in outer space. We also have a great story about a carbon collector, the biggest one in the world, going in right here in the United States. And we're going to wrap it up with a waitress who's just lucky to meet some great human beings. Remember, if you want more interesting stories every day, go ahead and click that subscribe button right over here. Well, let's get right into this. Researchers around the globe are totally excited today. They wrapped up the Event Horizon project. That is a project that's supposed to take the first photos ever of a black hole. They won't know for sure if they are successful until late January. They're going to have a pretty good idea of whether or not it worked in a couple months. They have so much data to go through, it's going to take some time. To get this photo, they put together a project they were calling the Event Horizon. And basically what they did was take 8 telescope arrays, shoot them all in the same place in the universe, and use them as one giant telescope mirror. Comparatively, if you took the processing power and the way it was shaped and everything like that, they came up with a telescope that would have a mirror equivalent to 6,200 miles in diameter. This telescope was so powerful, if you aimed it at the moon, you'd be able to see a golf ball on the moon. Like I said, this is 8 arrays. They're spread out on 4 different continents, and they had one out in Hawaii, out in the middle of nowhere. It looks kind of cute sitting out there by itself. And all these sites contained 1 to 66 radio telescopes. The first one they're calling Sagittarius A. That's where they believe the black hole in the middle of the Milky Way galaxy is. The second one is known as M87. It's in a galaxy that's about 53 million light years away. They figure this is a supermassive black hole, and they really hope to be able to see jets coming out of either side of it in order to prove that not everything that goes in never comes out. Each array produced 500 terabytes of data alone. When you add all that up, it comes out to 4/10 of an exabyte. I know that doesn't sound like much, but I just wanted to say exabyte. It comes out to about 40,000 terabytes worth of information. These are going to be shipped off via jet to the Max Planck Institute and the Haystacks supercomputer at MIT. So that way they could process them and get a head start on this. The reason I say head start is they cannot get the data out of Antarctica yet from the South Pole telescope because you can't fly into the South Pole right now. They've got to wait until January before they can get that data. But they are going to start on it. They'll get it processed to the point where then they need that data to make the whole image. But for right now, they'll get a start and they'll make sure, they'll know if they got the image they want or not. They just won't have a complete picture until about 6 to 8 months from now. Their hope for this project is to get a good photo of the event horizon of at least one of these black holes. That's a spot where it's a point of no return, where matter is ripped apart under immense gravity and actually excretes light as it's like dying breath. Their hopes are that this will give us a better understanding of physics, the better understanding of the way our universe works, and heck, even just prove that black holes exist. Because right now they are just theoretical. It's amazing what you can do when you get a bunch of researchers putting their minds and telescopes together, isn't it? In my next topic, we're going to talk about real space exploration being done during fake space exploration. EVE Online is an MMORPG that claims to be the world's largest work of science fiction, is teaming up with Project Discovery in order to find real-life exoplanets. What they're going to do is release a bunch of little mini-games inside the larger game that players can play to earn credits, online credits for different things in the game. These games will be based around looking at luminosity curves, which is the change in a star's light as a planet passes in front of it. They announced this release last week at its annual Fan Fest. How they're going to do this is they're going to use a bunch of data from the Corot space observatory that was put into orbit back in 2006 and decommissioned in 2013. There's so much data accumulated from this, there's still tons to go through. And they even plan, if this is successful, they want to add data from Kepler and the Next Generation Transit Survey. Researchers think this will be a great way to examine massive amounts of data, basically through crowdsourcing your science. This is a proven principle as well. Last year, they took on a similar mini game where people were examining high-def slides of cells and mapping proteins in them. Those findings help build the Human Protein Atlas. Now, of course, there are risks associated with this as well. I mean, you get a bunch of people trying to earn money, you're going to get a lot of false hits. But for the big ones, the ones where a lot of people think that's actually something, the scientists, of course, are going to double check their work before they make any announcements. I'm going to keep an eye on this story. I want to know how this turns out, see how many planets get found. I'm going to start this next segment with a quote from Edgar Mitchell. He's the sixth man to walk on the moon, and he famously said, "From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty. You want to grab a politician by the scruff of his neck and drag him 250,000 miles out and say, 'Look at that, you son of a bitch.'" I love the old astronauts. These guys were truly badass. Well, the Autonomous Space Agency Network has taken that quote and put it to use. They launched a weather balloon 90,000 feet into the atmosphere. Not quite space, but far enough that you can see the curve of the Earth, with a printed out tweet that says, "Look at this, you son of a bitch." And they tagged it at the real Donald Trump. This kind of is the first protest on a global scale, right? This doesn't just work for Donald Trump, though. I think this is something everyone on this planet can get a little bit from. Really look at it and see how little we mean on a galactic scale, on a universal scale. They call it the overview effect. And I think it'd be great to really help open up the world's eyes. Let's drag them all up to space and let them see what this Earth is really about. I want to come back down to the Earth now. We're going to take a look at the world's largest carbon collector. It was built in Texas to capture carbon emissions from a coal electric plant. This is called the Petra project, and it is designed to capture 5,000 tons of CO2 per day. They say that is the same as taking 350,000 cars off the road. And they're even going to put the CO2 to good use. Through advanced oil capture techniques, they're going to turn that plant's usual output of about 300 barrels of oil per day. They're going to be able to crank that up to 15,000 barrels of oil per day, reclaimed from that CO2 emission. They are only going to be capturing about 40% of the flue gas that leaves that plant, but of that 40%, they will be able to trap 90% of it from our environment. So all in all, they are going to hold on to most of what they trap. It's a step in the right direction. To wrap it up, we're going to stay here on Earth and talk about a lucky waitress who just happened to meet the right people. Kayla Shandara, she works at a Thai restaurant in Waikiki, was waiting on an Australian couple. When they struck up a conversation, they got talking about debt and work schedules and her student loans and stuff like that. Just normal conversation between a waitress and her customers. When the customers got done with their meal, they had run up a $200 bill. So when they paid their bill, she got quite the shock. They had left her a $400 tip. Which, I mean, heck, a 200% tip? You must have done something right. Well, this shocked Kayla, and she decided, because she knew where these people were staying through their conversation, she was going to go over and find them and just thank them for this huge amount of money. They met up, and she told them thanks and everything, and all was well. The next day, that couple returned to the restaurant and offered to pay off her student loans. Of course, she said, no, I can't do this. They did talk her into it, and they ended up paying off $10,000 worth of student loans for her. When she asked how she could ever thank them, how she could ever repay them for this, they said, be your best possible self. Dream big and strive for your goals. Of course, the couple's names have not been released, but they seem like some great human beings. I'm sure Kayla's glad she ran into them. On that note, I'm going to wrap it up. If you like what I do, your friends might too. So go ahead and share me on Facebook and Twitter. I am here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. It's Thursday right now, so I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Be safe.